Welcome to our lesson on determining if numbers are prime or composite. What is a prime number? Prime numbers can only be divided evenly by 1 and itself. Prime numbers are whole numbers greater than 1. So, for example, the number 7 is a prime number because it can only be divided evenly by 1 in itself. What is a composite number? Composite numbers can be divided evenly by more numbers other than 1 in itself. Composite numbers are also whole numbers greater than 1. For example, the number 6. 6 can be divided evenly by 1 in itself and also by the numbers 2 and 3. All numbers greater than 1 are either prime or composite. To determine whether a number is prime or composite, we can take a look at some divisibility rules. For the number 2, if the number is divisible by 2, it is a composite number. The number 2 is the exception. It is prime because 2 is only divisible by 2 and itself. So all even numbers other than the number 2 are composite. The divisibility rule for 3. Add up all the digits in the number. If the sum is divisible by 3, then the number is also divisible by 3. Once again, the number 3 is the exception. It is prime because 3 is only divisible by 1 in itself. Looking at this rule, I know that the number 18 is divisible by 3 because when I add up 1 plus 8, that equals 9. And 9 is divisible by 3. The divisibility rule for 4. If the last 2 digits in a number are divisible by 4, so is the number. So we know the number 40. If I add those 2 digits up, 4 plus 0 equals 4. So the number 40 is divisible by 4, which means it's a composite number. The divisibility rule by 5, if a number ends with 5 or 0, it is divisible by 5. The number 5 is the exception. It is prime because 5 is only divisible by 1 and itself. The divisibility rule for 6. If the number is divisible by 2 and 3, it cannot be either or. It has to be both. It is also divisible by 6. Take the number 18. I know 18 is divisible by 2 because it's an even number. I also know it's divisible by 3 because 1 plus 8 equals 9, and 9 is divisible by 3. So it is also divisible by 6. The rules for 7 and 8 work best for numbers greater than 100, and our focus is going to be on numbers 0 through 100. The divisibility rule for the number 9. You add up all of the digits. If the sum is divisible by 9, so is the number. Let's take the number 81. We know 8 plus 1 equals 9, and 9 is divisible by 9, so 81 is also divisible by 9. The divisibility rule for 10, if the number ends in a 0, it is also divisible by 10. Let's try a few. Let's decide if these numbers are prime or composite. So we're going to go through all of our divisibility rules. Okay, let's look at the number 47. 47 is not divisible by 2 because it's not an even number. It's not divisible by 3 because when I add 4 plus 7 together, that gives me 11, and 11 is not divisible by 3. It is not divisible by 4 because 47 is not divisible by 4. It is not divisible by 5 because it does not end in a 0 or a 5. It is not divisible by 6 because it was not divisible by 2 and 3. It is not divisible by 9 because when I add 4 plus 7 together, 11 is not divisible by 9. And it is not divisible by 10 because it does not end in a 0. So 47 is a prime number because it can only be divided by 1 and itself. Let's look at the number 93. Once again, we're going to go through our divisibility rules to decide if it is prime or composite. 93 is not divisible by 2 because it is not an even number. It is, however, divisible by 3 because when I add 9 plus 3 together, it gives me 12, and 12 is divisible by 3. It is not divisible by 4 because the last two digits, 93, are not divisible by 4. It is not divisible by 5 because it does not end in a 0 or a 5. It is not divisible by 6 because even though it is divisible by 3, it was not divisible by 2 and 3. It is not divisible by 9 because 9 plus 3 equals 12, and 12 is not divisible by 9. And it is not divisible by 10 because it does not end in a 0. So this makes 93 a composite number because it can be divided by 1 and itself, and it can also be divided evenly with the number 3. All right, let's take the number 62, last one, going through all of our divisibility rules. Okay, we know 62 is divisible by 2 because it's an even number. So already we know that 62 is a composite number, but let's keep going. 62 is not divisible by 3 because 6 plus 2 equals 8, and 8 is not divisible by 3. All right, let's look at the number 4. It is not divisible by 4 because 62 is not divisible by 4. It is not divisible by 5 because it does not end in a 0 or a 5. It is not divisible by 6 because it was not divisible by both 2 and 3. It is not divisible by 9 because 6 plus 2 equals 8, and 8 is not divisible by 9. And it is not divisible by 10 because it does not end in a 0. But 62 is still a composite number. And this concludes our lesson on determining if numbers are prime or composite.